Concentrate on the chain of dominance on a rhythm change. Joshua Redman on Yesterdays, also a chain of dominance, this one chromatic. There are tons of examples on chains of dominance. Almost all the jazz tunes we play have chains of dominance. In this blues, the turnaround is a chain of dominance. And in the bridge of the rhythm change, there's a chain of dominance. And some even play the whole form as a chain of dominance. For me, the challenge in the chain of dominance is a key change. You're changing the key every bar, every second bar. The biggest challenge here, I think, is making it sound musical and logical. Let's look at some standard ways to go from dominant to dominant. Obviously, you need to train the changing of the keys. Running down the scales like this will train this in a very, very nice way, but it's not really musical. The main thing I think is getting the dominance into a melodic context, connecting these without sounding like an exercise. Breaking the scales up, adding a little bit of rhythm, adding a little bit of rest in there will help you do this and will make you able to hear the keys in between. And this one does not sound like an exercise anymore because of the changing of the lines. I do not play the same thing every bar. I change the lines every time I change the dominant. But as you see, this line consists of 3 different licks. And you should train these licks. A nice way to read these patterns or these licks is adding numbers to them. You see that I start on the 7 on this one, go to the 3, and then move up to the 5 on all the chords. The second lick I move from the 7 to the 7th, and the third one I move from the 9 to the 3rd on those dominant chains. But all the licks are pretty basic. Practice these in all the keys around the chain of dominance to get very fluent in all the keys, and enabling you to put this together when you're encountering this in any tune. What I very much like about this line is how it connects the chords to each other. It does not connect directly from the 3rd to the 7th or the 7th to the 3rd. And it does not connect directly on the first beat of the bar. Further, the pattern does not repeat on every bar the same line, and it also changes direction from going down to going up. In the Patreon lesson manual, I have of course added all these licks in all 12 keys, not only these 4 keys as you see here. And I really want you to be able to do the plug and play. Get the manual, get playing on these dominants. It's very important to know these and get these into your playing. To get an even more smooth connection between the dominants, I add the 2nd degree, the 2 in the 2-5, to this little progression. What I mentioned before, to get a smooth connection, you can add little rests in between. Then you got a much clearer sound of the line. And again, by not choosing the obvious connections, you get a much more interesting line there. I'm connecting the top line and the bottom line, and then I'm connecting the leading tones over the bar line. When you're practicing this, you can take each individual lick and take it round the chain of dominance. What I've been doing here. You need to practice these to have them ready in your vocabulary when you encounter these dominants in your music. But remember to mix them up, don't sound like an exercise. Both the exercise and the licks with the mix up I have added into the Patreon manual. Go get it on the Patreon. When substituting every second bar with the tritone substituted dominant, you need a much stronger melodic line, because just going down all these scales sounds completely like an exercise. The chromatic line down makes it much more complicated to listen to because of the chromatic line. You need to control all the keys much better, and you need to make it understandable to the listener what you're playing. In this line, one of my main focuses is making it clear that every bar I'm moving down the line. I'm connecting the top tone as a guide tone line through the chords. Putting all these licks into separate exercise is a very effective way to get them into your fingers. You see in that second bar, it's a minor chord in there. I used the B flat minor completely to cover that E flat 7. You see that I'm playing these licks chromatically down, and it makes for a very complicated sound. But you need these ready to insert into the action right when you are playing, so go for it. This line sounds really smooth because I'm really leaning into how to connect to the next line, and I'm really careful on what I'm playing on each bar. Really thinking about the resolution to the next bar, and I'm also considering the top tones, how this resolves, and the bottom tone, how that resolves into the next bar. Connecting the top and the bottom tones makes a very parallel, linear sound through the lick. When you go for these dominant chains, remember to check that Patreon manual, it'll really help me a lot getting going. All the licks are written out in all 12 keys and taken through the dominant chain in 5th and chromatically. This is a super great way to open your knowledge of all the 12 keys, and you really need to get in there at some point. Digging more dominance like all the saxophone heroes? Check these two videos out with Brecker and Chris Potter, two of my heroes. Play music, have fun.